pay attention to just how this is wound around the reels, and the take-up reel is on the right and the source is on the left. And then when you're actually putting the film in there, this is just a diagram. Notice the holes of the film are going to go toward the projector. This is more of a diagram here, shows you where it goes in. There's 3 pins you got to get it under that are there in the case. And then here's the back side, and you can see that there's a place for an SD card, and that's really the only thing you really have to know on that part. And then if your frame gets out of whack, you go to that keyboard on the front side, you go through the menu, and you can change that so that there's no gap. One of the hardest things, particularly when you're digitizing 8 or Super 8 film, is just getting the film lined up and getting it into the receiver. So I made a paper model here, and you can kind of look at it, and maybe it'll help you. But I wish I had seen this before I got started, because it took me about 5 or 6 tapes getting jammed up and everything else, not realizing that there was a simple way to do it. So this paper model has 3 points. This will be point number 1, and that's a little tab that's inside the machine. Point number 2 and point number 3. And the idea is to get this film behind there. And when you have film, and this is just a paper copy of it, the holes, as you can see right here, they always line up toward the top. Every once in a while you'll get a film that's been wound backwards, and you're going to have to do something a little bit different, which I ended up having to do a few times, because those holes always have to be, or otherwise the cars are driving backwards, and et cetera, et cetera. So the thing you really have to do is get these things underneath the tabs themselves. So I'm going to show you how that might work. Okay, you got the film, the holes go upward, and the first thing you got to do is somehow get your finger in there and get it up underneath that tab. And hopefully you can see that it's underneath that one tab. These 2 tabs are on the opposite end, so you've got to kind of push them up until they get into that tab, just like I just did there. And then you're going to have to do the same thing with your finger down at that end. And then when you get all done, the film, once it's like that, you can close this apparatus on top. But you've got to get point number 1 first, then 2 or 3, doesn't make any difference, but get them in by pushing up until it gets there. You'll get the feel of it after a couple, but hopefully it won't take you as long as it did for me. So that's this part of that video. Okay, once that's in there and secured, you'll close the lid. Now, that 8mm or Super 8 tape will not move any from that point. Now it's still going to curl and everything else like this one's just done, so I'm going to go back and put a little bit back on the reel. This one goes on the underside of that one. Now this one weaves over here, over, under, over, and under. And if you don't do that, it might work and it might not. Then you have to kind of turn your reel. Hard to see a little bit. And keep in mind that this is a backwards tape. Most of yours will not be that way, but I am sure that you will find one that is. Now to turn it on, you press this button here once. You have to have a scan disc in the back side, and then you press on this thing 2 times on the very end, and it'll say please wait. Pretty soon it'll be ready to go, and that's what it's going to look like. It's going to come up here. If this frame happens to be in the middle or where you blocking, you've got to make an adjustment. You just stop it, and then there's a menu here, and you go to frame advance or whatever it's called, and then you adjust it at that point. I've had to do that a few times, but not too often. It makes a clicking noise. It's actually copying one frame at a time. And it goes slow. So this will take, for 3 minutes, it's going to take almost a half hour. So a half hour going frame by frame is how you will do that. Now when we get it all done, I'll kind of give you a little heads up on what we do at that point. But everything seems to be working. You know, I try to do this while I'm watching ball games or something else, so I'm just not sitting here watching every minute. But this little machine, like I said, it does a good job. I tried it different ways, and I got pretty frustrated. But once I figured out the one part here in this little mid part where how you attach the film, then it solved all my worries, except for when there's a piece of tape on a 8mm or it broke apart or something like that. So those things just happen. But it's a good process, and it'll take a little bit of time. But these are the discs right here that you will need for the back side. And I don't think it can be any bigger than a 32 gig one. For some reason, it won't take it bigger, but that'll take care of a lot of videos. I'm sure I got 100 of them on one 32 gig. So we'll look at the back here in just a little bit after we finish this. Okay, we'll just show you briefly what I do to transfer them. You could use the cord, but I put in the SD card on the computer, and this is a Mac, so it will recognize it. You probably saw it come up right there. And then you just click on it a couple times. And then there's something that is called Film Scanner. I got to click on it once. Actually, double click. And then there's another file in there called Movie. And then when you get that done, here are all the things that I've digitized. And I'm going to just take one of them and just show you what I do with it. There may be smaller files in there, and you don't do those, only the ones in the $200 and $300 megabyte deal. So here's this boy. This is the one I just did. Looks like a Christmas scene of some sort. And we will go up here to the top, and I will again double click, and there is the name of the file and numbers. I just highlight it, I give it a new name, and I'm going to say this one's Arizona. So AZ Christmas or something, whatever you want to call it. And once it's there, all I have to do is drag it down to, I'm putting mine on a thumb drive over here on that other side. So I put my thumb drive, and when I put my thumb drive in the Mac, it shows up here. And so I'll just take this little puppy there, grab it, take it down to that one, and it is now being transferred to that. You can see up here, it's being transferred with the new name. I keep them all in the thumb drive, and then when it gets ready, I'll make copies of thumb drive to everybody. So that's pretty much what I do. It's not too sophisticated. It's a lot of taking things in and taking things out. But, you know, hey, I'm retired. I'm not playing professional basketball or football anymore. Haha. Okay, have a good day.